Welcome back, guys, to another edition of Recruiter Fuel, where we're continuing this series of real talk with real recruiters. Now, this one's a little bit different. Jeff, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So, you're not actually on the recruiting side, you're on the sourcing side.
That's correct.
So, give us a little bit of the background before I ask a couple of these questions.
Sure. Well, I'm a research manager here at Qualigence. I've been here for around 4.5 years. Where a variety of clients will reach out to us on a daily basis for needs for their organization, and providing them with organizational charts from other companies for maybe a couple of their needs. They might be pipelining candidates for future needs down the road. They might have an immediate opening in their organization.
So name gen, sourcing, all the things that recruiters have to do every day.
Absolutely.
But doing some of it for them so they don't have to do it. Okay, so let's switch gears. Guys, one of the biggest things that we keep getting responses or questions about is this whole idea of candidate or intake sessions, whether it's from a sourcing perspective or from a research perspective. We were talking about this a little bit. That intake session can go really, really right, and then everything beyond that goes really well, or it can go really, really bad, and then everything goes bad. You've got an example of one of those.
Unfortunately, I do.
Okay, tell us about it.
Well, looking for a role not too long ago for a sales project manager, and it's a very niche role in the organization. Now, the reason why the intake went so wrong is anytime we asked a question surrounding the position, the nitty-gritty details, we kept getting referred back to the job description. Well,
why is that a bad thing?
That's a bad thing because the job description could be outdated. It could be, containing information that's outdated pertaining to the job. It could have been written by somebody in HR.
So let's go to this particular situation. Did the job description support really what they were looking for?
Not at all.
Not at all?
Not at all.
Okay, so what were some of the differences that they told you versus what was on the job description?
Sure. Well, it was a 60-40 kind of position. Wanted them to have more sales experience and a little bit of project management experience.
Okay.
However, after having the intake call and being referred to the job description for every question we asked, after the first round of research, having a discussion with the client about the results thus far, it seemed as though we were off. It changed what they were really looking for, and it morphed a couple times as far as what skill set they really wanted this individual to have.
Okay, so we didn't get all the information we necessarily needed. It didn't match the job description, or they kept pushing back to the job description. We did a little work anyways. That was probably mistake number one.
Yes.
So we probably were off as a result of that.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Come full circle on this now. What were the other issues? Was that the primary issue? Were there any other issues?
That was the primary issue.
Okay.
Just understanding and making sure we were on the same page. So we didn't have that complete understanding from them what it truly was they were looking for. And it seemed as though that there was mixed feelings on their end as well as to what this person really needed to have. And that came from both the hiring manager and somebody in HR as well who had written the job description.
So potentially two issues. What they were looking for was not what was on the job description, so they were telling us, look at job description. And then secondly, they may not have even agreed on what they were looking for.
That's spot on.
So probably two strikes that we probably shouldn't have continued at that point.
Absolutely.
Okay, now we did. Unfortunately, we probably end up having to give some free work away in order to make it right, but that's not the issue here. We've got a bunch of recruiters that are watching us on here, so if you had to give them some advice, two pieces of advice, one piece of advice, on how to deal with the intake session and the importance of an intake session when figuring out what their sourcing strategy is going to be. What's that one or two pieces of advice you give them? Flip the whole thing around.
My advice is to have an individual on the intake call who this position may be reporting into. They're going to know exactly what they want and what they're looking for. Nobody's going to know that better than them.
Okay, what else? What's the other kind of takeaway from this thing? I would suggest not starting until you have all the details. So if you feel a little uncomfortable, don't continue. Is that fair?
I would go that route.
Okay, so you did the first update with the client, realized it was off. How did you end up fixing it?
So we really just had to have another conversation, make sure that everybody was in agreement before we did any more work. To your point, we had to spend a little bit of free time to make up for that, and we never want that situation to happen. We always want to be on the same page, set expectations, and make sure that we're all have the same sense of buy-in for what we're looking for.
Great advice, Jeff. So, guys, this is something again that comes up constantly, and I wanted to use us as a prime example that nobody gets it perfect, but the importance, Jeff, as you're talking about, of ultimately doing the intake session the right way. And if you're not doing it the right way, you're not getting the information that you need, don't start the search, don't start the research, don't start the sourcing. Take a step back, reevaluate, because without the right information, we're going to be all over the board.
Right. You want to get it right the first time.
That's it. Perfectly said. Well, way to close this, Jeff. Thanks for joining us today. This has been another edition of Recruiter Fuel and Real Talk with a real research manager. Jeff, thanks again.
Thank you.